What's up, guys? It's Josh. This is week 19, SobrietyWoD. Welcome back if you've been before. If you're new, welcome. Today we're talking about tracking progress, and the idea is kind of about, is it good, is it bad, is it something that you do, is it something that you don't do? And what I'm talking about first is our sobriety. So I'm a member of a 12-step fellowship, and a big component of that is tracking your progress. So we have a chip system. You get a chip when you first start, and you get a chip every month for the first year. Then you get a chip for your first year and a half, 2 years, and then multiple years after that. And then being in fitness, same thing. I've really been thinking a lot about and studying the idea of tracking progress. And so my story, as far as chips concerned, I always said it wasn't that big a deal. I got one. I got the ones in between. Coming up on July 17th, I'll have 6 years of not drinking alcohol. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal, so I just never really made a big deal out of it. But I recently went through some stuff where a doctor put me on some Adderall, some medication, and I kind of questioned whether it was something that I should be on or not. And I dealt with it probably for about a year, almost 2 years, and then some old habits started coming up, and some old obsession, and some old behavior patterns, and it's something that kind of threw me off for a little while. And so I had to get back. For me, I had to get back in that program. I had to get back with a sponsor and take some suggestions and get some advice, because things were not going as well as they had at one point. And so he suggested that I get a new chip. Well, up until then, I had said it wasn't that big a deal, but when it came down to it, I was really reluctant to do that. I didn't want to admit that I had kind of messed up and had to start over again. And it took a couple weeks of battling with it. I fought it, argued about it. I was like, no, it's just alcohol and it doesn't count and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't feel right. Like, something inside me was like, no, dude, like, pretty much used it the same way, And I had to really dig deep and get honest with myself. And so what it started off was, I just did it because he told me to. And right after I did it, I realized that's what I needed to do. It's something I didn't want to do, but it was something that I knew that I should do. And so, telling you that story just to say that that progress tracking really ended up being a bigger deal to me than I thought. And so I did a little bit of research about where the whole chip idea came from. What it started off was this sister who was helping the original AA guys with treating alcoholics. And so when alcoholics would leave the house that they were in, basically, she would give them a little medallion, and they would keep it with them, and it would remind them of their commitment. It would remind them that they're trying to walk this new path of life. So that's kind of where it came from. But then there were some issues with it where, as early on, where guys were making a year, they were celebrating by going out partying and drinking. And so then it kind of had some deleterious effects. And so it ended up sticking around, though. The chips ended up sticking around. And AA is a lot like CrossFit in the sense that if it doesn't work, we get rid of it. If it works, we keep it around. And so it stayed around. And so I looked into a little bit of why it stayed around. And one of the reasons is, for the newcomer, for the new person, it gives them an opportunity to immediately act. We live in our heads a lot, and a lot of reality, our reality for us, is what's going on in our head. It's not even what's going on outside of us. And so we have that propensity to just be in here all the time, and we forget that if we want to change anything, we actually have to change what we do. And so it gives us an opportunity to take a step that says, man, something's different right now. I've done something different, to actually start the process. Because most of us have sworn up and down, time and time again, we're never going to use again. And a lot of us by that evening were loaded again. So that was one reason. The other reason is keeping it in your pocket gives you that second thought, or not even having it in your pocket, just knowing, if I do this, I'm giving up 3 months, I'm giving up 6 months, I'm giving up a year. And it can help us sort of maybe make a different decision in the situation before we just go and throw all that away. And the last one is for others. That's the one I always forget about, because we're so self-centered. But the reality is that the new people need to see a guy get his 3-month chip, a guy get his 6-month chip, a guy get his 1-year chip. They need to see that this thing is working, that there's actually some hope. I had a guy that I was talking to the other day that was telling me how for the first time he actually feels some hope, and it's because he's watching some guys that he's come up with get some chips and get some time under their belt and starting to believe that there might actually be some success. So what I want you guys to do is just hang out, talk a little bit about whether you do or don't keep track of your sobriety time. Some people keep it down to the second, and then other people are just kind of like, ah, yeah, it's been a while. And it's just a good conversation to have. Why is it important to you? Why isn't it important to you? And you guys kind of get each other's feedback on that, and we'll be right back.